Max.
Take it away.
Hey, welcome to Shops Talk on the Road number 2. I will tell you, before we even start, big shout out to the whole team that has helped put all this together. Believe it or not, running webinars from a party bus via mobile Wi-Fi and everything else, slightly challenging, but man, we've been having a blast doing it. So super excited for everybody to be here, be on with us. So pumped to have my good friend Salesforce Ben McCarthy here hanging out with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's so
Party
fun.
bus is sick.
Party bus is great, man. This thing turned out incredibly well. Fun fact, I've told Ben this so many times. I've looked up to you for years. I probably wouldn't be where I am in my Salesforce career without a lot of the guidance, especially a lot of the certification tests that I've been keeping up and trying to be the next Salesforce Ben. So can't thank you enough, man. It's so good to see you in person again. So without further ado, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. And obviously, please connect with us all on LinkedIn. I know Kevin's putting some of the prompts up there so you can connect with us, but take it away. Introduce yourself.
Sure. So my name's Ben McCarthy, aka Salesforce Ben. So I've been in the ecosystem for over 10 years now, 11 12 years. And I've worked as a Salesforce admin. I've worked for ISVs such as Conga, ran a consultancy for a while. But throughout all of that, and nearly 10 years running the Salesforce Ben blog now, I've been writing about Salesforce. So, our kind of mission statement goal is start helping people start their careers on the Salesforce platform, also advance them. So certs are a big part of that. And we're very connected with Salesforce now. So, we got access to all the news that came out, the tidal wave of AI news that came out on Tuesday. So, it's really cool to get all the content ahead of time and kind of what we like to do is kind of digest it for the Salesforce community. So, Salesforce are marketing masters, but sometimes you're kind of like, okay, what is this? what is this thing? So we kind of, we boil it down and try and explain things in a very simplistic manner. So my full-time job now is running Salesforce Ben. We get 400,000 users a month coming to the site, and a lot of the community is powered by our team, but also the Salesforce community as well, including our friends at Sonar as well.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's been fun. We've been partnering with this stuff now for a couple years, 2 or 3 years now. It's always a delight. Your whole team is just phenomenal to work with, and think highly of you guys. So I'll tell you, I'm ready to dive into some of this stuff. And if you didn't already see it, kind of in the preview, we're going to be going through all things State of Salesforce. So one thing that Ben's done a really cool job with, collaborating with the IBM team, is putting the State of Salesforce together. We're going to go ahead and put a link in there right now for you. So go ahead and grab that, jump into it. But we're going to go through the biggest insights that y'all go through in that report. We're going to dive right in. Stop me if you've heard this one. It's on a few billboards out here, but there's this thing called AI right now that I don't know. I'm going to ask you what that is. That's one of the biggest things. All things being equal, it is interesting to see this evolution of AI. AI is not new. It's been around. We've talked about this. We've seen movies a decade ago about it, But over the last 12 months, maybe 18, with having so much flexibility and availability to the actual functionality, we already have it built into Sonar. So you can start to build out your data dictionary that way with it. But I am curious to you, with theme number 1, all things AI, how are you thinking about, 1, how Salesforce is posturing themselves with it and some of the advancements of the technology, but 2, where do you think this really starts to go?
Yeah, I think Salesforce have kind of set themselves up for success here because we have the customer 360, and last year they released Data Cloud, which was before this kind of this wave of generative AI came along. So I mean, it was ChatGPT really that kicked. Well, generative AI has been around for a while, but I mean, me personally, I hadn't really heard of it until ChatGPT came along. We started using it, and we were just like, oh my god, what is this? Last year's major announcement was Genie, now called Data Cloud, which takes information from all these different systems and piles it into Salesforce. And now Salesforce has got the Einstein One platform, which combines Data Cloud and Einstein generative AI technology. So it's taking all this existing data that you've got in your Salesforce org, plus these real-time streams of data coming from Data Cloud, and allowing you to generate these amazing things with generative AI. And something that's so important with generative AI is the data. To take a really basic example, we've seen the automatic sales emails that will get generated. Taking customer history, what's your relationship with them, that kind of stuff. But if you've got an account in Salesforce, which is incorrect, missing data, incomplete data, the output is going to be absolutely terrible. So so it's all about taking this data and being able to generate that. So I mean, there's so much to talk about with AI. We've seen Copilot come out, which is going to be embedded inside of Salesforce for all users, sales users, service users, marketing users to use to help augment their job. And then you've got kind of the behind the scenes stuff. So Copilot Studio, which allows Salesforce admins to build these. They're like kind of templated prompts, I guess. So instead of a sales user going every time, can you generate me an email which helps me upsell this product? You've just got a button, or you go, generate that email for me, and it just goes boom. And then behind the scenes, you can tell Einstein to go and fetch this data using a flow, and fetch this data from Data Cloud and pull it all into these kind of templated steps that this generative AI will do and then come out with. And then you've got, I don't know if you've heard of it's called Developer GPT.
I sat in on a session yesterday on one of these. Fascinating, but yeah.
Yeah, so Developer GPT is a plugin into Visual Studio, which is what developers use to code generally. Yep. And now it allows you to auto-complete code. So as you start typing, a developer starts typing in some code, it will suggest things to auto-complete it with using generative AI, which is just mad. So I think there's so many different layers. You've got the kind of user side of things, the admin side of things, and the developer side of things. And it's like you could say, like, we've been through the phase of kind of crypto and NFTs, and they've kind of fizzled out now, and AI could be there's a small chance that it could be one of those, but there's so many practical applications that AI is already helping businesses. Yes. So it's very unlikely this is just hype.
I don't think it's the flash in the pan. Yeah. I don't think it's the flavor of the week and it goes away anytime soon. I think it is here to stay. One of the cool conversations, I'm going to point behind the camera to Jack, my co-founder, with his background coming from so much of this product engineering space, engineers have been using software engineers, not necessarily Salesforce engineers. Software engineers have been using generative AI for a while to make their code more like high quality, testing and things like that. That's one of the big reasons why I do think this is here to stay. So many things that we're seeing in the Salesforce ecosystem. This big wave of DevOps. We didn't talk about DevOps for Salesforce 5, 6, 7 years ago. Yep. Now it's one of the most hottest topics. That is here to stay. That also came by way of taking a look into real product and real engineering. This is stuff that real software engineers have been doing for decades.
Yep.
It's just coming to light for our ecosystem now. So I'm a firm believer. I don't think it's going to be a flash in the pan or flavor of the week. I think this is here to stay. I'm excited to see how creative a lot of ISVs, in particular, we're using it. But some of the conversations I'm having with so many other ISVs right now are loving this. And I think this is going to be truly that next wave. I'm bullish to say it's the dog-eat-dog world. If you don't adopt an AI strategy or you don't have a posture for it, you're going to be left in the dust. I don't think you're going to be keeping up with everybody else and keeping your company moving the right way forward. So
yeah, I think you could potentially argue that this wave of AI, if you don't keep up with it, is going to have a more detrimental effect than perhaps other kind of digital transformation eras and stuff, just because of the we've all seen the stats about the trillions of GDP this is going to add to the economy. And if you're not keeping up with that and your competitors are, then
you're left in the dust.
Not good.
You're left in the dust. I love it. Big theme. We got 4 more to go with, and I got a bonus theme that Ben doesn't actually know about. So we're going to get some real candor from Ben at the very end. But theme number 2 from the State of Salesforce report with IBM, all things industry cloud. I'm pumped about this. Honestly, you and I have talked about this before, especially in other webinars. This evolution of all the different industry clouds. I remember around when I was starting my Salesforce career, I was like, all right, got to go understand Sales Cloud. I'm not a big marketing guy. I've dabbled in some marketing ops, but I can do some marketing cloud and service cloud. And it kind of topped out there. That's about the 3 that we have. How many clouds do we have? Industry clouds now.
10.
10. I think
it was 2016 we had Financial Services Cloud, which they built themselves, Salesforce, but then they obviously acquired Velocity, which had telecommunications, manufacturing.
Yeah.
I can't remember the others, but yeah, there's I think there's about 8, 10.
Yeah. How do you think about this from a theme standpoint, and then with the report that you've done with IBM? Where do these different industry clouds start to go? Do we think about an 11th, a 12th, a 13th coming around? And obviously these certifications come along with that too, that we all know. But how do you think about this evolution? Because it is relatively new over the last 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, and something to just point out actually is we all know kind of the economy we're in, and Salesforce's growth isn't what it used to be. But industry cloud is actually growing, I think, around 50% year on year, whilst the core platform is growing about 11%.
Really?
Yeah. So it's it's obviously penetrating in a lot more. And a few kind of facts that IBM points out is in their report. And you can download it to find out more about this, is they split their customers into pioneers, which is the highest performing customers, the ones that are getting the most out of ROI, and then they split that to go, okay, what are these people doing, which is making them get so much ROI? And then they have pensives, which are the ones that are a bit more reserved, maybe not experimenting with some of these things like generative AI. And what they found out is that pioneers were getting 150% more ROI on their solution if they were using industry clouds.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I know. I mean, it makes total sense. I didn't know that stat for it. That is fascinating.
And I think back in 2016 when I founded Empower, which is or co-founded Empower, the consultancy that I used to work for, that was just when they were releasing financial services cloud, and they were also just Salesforce was just starting to verticalize their teams.
Yep.
So financial services team, manufacturing team, and that was such a smart move because it just builds up so much domain expertise for these account executives, for these solution engineers. So when they go into a customer meeting, they can speak the lingo, they can talk about other implementations, and then as sales partners, so we used to focus on financial services. Same with us, we would build up our domain expertise, we would make some mistakes, we learn from them, so the next implementation was better and better, and so on. So I think when you have a Salesforce team, which is much more upskilled in an industry, you have an implementation partner which is much more upskilled in the industry. Some ISVs are also focused on the industry, and then you have a Salesforce core product, financial services cloud, manufacturing cloud, that is pre-built for your industry. The speed to market is a lot quicker, and the ROI you can get out of it is a lot bigger as well.
Totally. You spoke exactly what I was going to mention. It is so precedential when Salesforce makes these decisions, and also how it goes downstream into other parts of the ecosystem. I was talking to one of my best friends. He's out here. He's a CTA for PwC, and he obviously they build their company around the different clouds. Like he mainly focuses on financial and some industrial, but everything else. I mean, you think about the SaaS side of things, high tech ecosystem that we're all in. But everybody else, ISVs and service providers, are now really starting to gear their business around this. Putting my RevOps hat on, new territories, new ways of thinking about, okay, Kevin on our team, our top seller, right here behind the camera, like, do we at some point start to have him really focus so heavily on the specific industries, one that he knows so well, that he's mastered of, and we start to think about some of our other team members, and we start to put them in different places. Companies now are starting to shift and move a lot of their, like I said, territory planning and just overall like sales team models based on the clouds that Salesforce is starting to put out. I love it.
100%.
Super precedential. All right, we're cruising, man. This one's fun, and I love this. So we start to think of theme number 3, which is really the integration of data and like disseminating those silos. We talk about tech stacks all day. It's a little bit of our sweet spot. We love it. But when you think about that and thematically, when you were putting this report together with IBM, what stood out the most to really think about the data integration and disseminating against those silos?
Yeah, I mean, we just did a presentation with IBM actually, and the lady who was hosting just kicked it off, going, this isn't anything new. We've been talking about this for years and years and years, but it's obviously so important now. As we kicked off the conversation with AI, generative AI is only going to be as good as the data that you're feeding it in. And I just think organizations are missing out on so much. And I can't remember the statistics, but there were stats in there of how much more. Actually, I can remember them. So if you're a pioneer and you've integrated your data, you're going to reveal more opportunities, from your customers. You're going to. There was a stat about revealing new business models from that data. So I just think you're missing out on so much if you do have these disparate systems. And I know it's hard if you've got a company which has been around for a long time. You've got these legacy systems. It is hard. And Salesforce has tried to bridge the gap with MuleSoft, an acquisition, quite a few years ago to integrate those legacy systems. Data Cloud as well is obviously trying to get that real-time data. So Salesforce have the platforms for people to be able to accomplish this. But it's just the analyzing of this data to reveal things about your business that you didn't know. And executives and managers need this data in order to make these really big decisions for their organizations.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting to me, kind of going back in these themes of how we see things year over year. We didn't talk a lot about data warehouses and databases. 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I really do. I'm bullish on this thought. We are at a crossroads right now in our industry of we have more data points than we know what to do with. To all our Salesforce admins out there, yes, we know we have field limits on objects, and I know you're hitting every single one of them because we all want to track all these new pieces of data. And I think it goes to show exactly what like data cloud and everything else you're talking about. It's so important that you have to have that high integrity of it. And when I think of this crossroads, there is no better time than going back to theme number 1 with AI, the whole theme of this whole week that we're out here for Dreamforce on. You have to have something like that to wrangle all this data. I think if you're a seller, and especially if you're early in your career, how the heck do you make sense of all the different data points that you need to know in order to go work with that customer and support them the right way? How do you know even how to prioritize them? And so, again, at this influx of data, these databases that are now growing exponentially, you have to have something like AI. So it's almost circular going back to theme number 1, but you have to harness it somehow.
Yeah, and you can see it. I don't know if you've played around with ChatGPT much, but it's one of the best things that I find. We we're a content business, so we use content. And what we found is that we don't think it's that great at writing good content. It can write plausible content, but I think we can write better content.
Of course.
But what is great is when we put all of our blog posts on and just go summarize this. And it just summarize it in 1 paragraph, 2 paragraph, whatever, and it just perfectly does it like that. So that's a kind of simplistic example, but if you're feeding in all this huge amount of information and you can go, tell me, just give me the top 5 reasons why this customer should buy Service Cloud, or something like that.
Yeah.
And hopefully it will be able to provide that information.
Totally. You'll love this. I know you and I see each other at conferences a lot with the DevOps Dreaming and things like that. Most of the Dreaming events that I've spoke at this year, I wrote my presentation for ChatGPT.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's optimize the modern day Salesforce tech stack. And
nice.
we talked about like I put it in. I've got a slide on it on my presentation. And it's a little GIF, and it's like, what is a go-to-market tech stack and how to optimize it? We asked ChatGPT how to do it. It's surprisingly accurate.
Yeah.
Directionally accurate. I do think the one thing, and this is, we're still humans. We're not robots yet. You and I are physically sitting beside each other, which is fantastic. We have to have a personality behind that. I think OpenAI has done a great job of not over-personalizing itself. It has a kind of a persona, a thought to it, but it does give you pretty blanket information and allows you to put your own flavor on it, which I do think, again, as humans, we need to be able to do that. So
I think that's quite a good evolution of AI as well. I think maybe some executives get scared because they think AI is going to take over and do stuff without them knowing, but I think Salesforce made it quite clear that there is going to be that human barrier between it generating a sales email or something like that and you actually sending it. And of course, it's going to make you more productive because you've got this kind of great email, and maybe it's not perfect actually, so you change a few bits, but that it gives you a fantastic starting point, which is way better than going, right, how do I start this email? What do I need to include?
Exactly. That's exactly it. I'm excited to see how, again, that continues to evolve, of course. We're cruising right along. I love this. This is actually one of my next. I'm most curious to get your thoughts on this next point because this is exciting for me. It's a little bit more on the culture side, the customer side, as opposed to the objective speaking, how we build and how we design. But when you think about investing in change-ready cultures, yes, we can throw the kitchen sink technology-wise at everything, but man, you have to have a culture that's ready for that. Yeah. How did y'all think about that? What was some of the biggest insights and aha moments when you put this together?
I think the biggest insight for me, and it really resonated because we do this as a team internally at Salesforce Ben, is the experimentation side of things. I think you have to be open to experimenting. Maybe if you look at AI as just this huge thing, it can be confusing where to start. But I think if you start testing ChatGPT out because it's free and it's available, test it out, see what kind of things it can do, and then kind of narrow it down to certain use cases like sales emails, take a basic approach, or summarizing case notes or something like that, and just kind of understand what is possible. But I think it's so important, just like we say, if you're not innovating at this moment, then you are going to get left behind. And what's the best place to start is experimenting with different ways to use AI, finding out those use cases that can make some really impactful changes inside your organization. So yeah, I mean, I was just on that panel I was mentioning, and I was speaking to Petra, one of the panelists, and I was saying, we're a company of 17 people, so we haven't got too many processes, and it's quite easy for us to experiment. She was just saying how hard it is she worked for this very large organization, how hard it is to to actually experiment. So I think it is hard for those huge enterprises because AI can be pretty scary if you don't know what's going on. But I think the Salesforce AI trust layer that we've heard so much about is hopefully kind of going to solve some of those worries with executives.
Totally. We had one of our enterprise customers, as we released our AI piece coming out, everybody's jazzed about it. Everybody loves a new feature, a new functionality, especially when it's AI related. But one of our enterprise customers, fully hit the stop button on us. And it wasn't, we got to the finish line with them and they're now using it as part of our data dictionary, but they were very timid about it. And I think it was their CISO, word for word, he was saying, I want to understand it better. I want to understand what access it has, what it can do, because, and not to say he was thinking, is it going to take over the world? Robots are going to move all my data around. But he does want to make sure that as they start to invest in it, that they do have that trust in the system that it's using, in what it's actually writing back, how it could be potentially modifying that data, because if it's too advanced, it could cycle through data and change. You're not able to capture that the right way. I think the more folks we talk to, especially some of our enterprise customers, they are in that same camp right now. I want to trust, but I also want to verify. Let's go one layer deeper. While it's exciting and we're all using it to a lot of different abilities, man, we've got to make sure that it's actually creating the right information for us and we're actually using it the right way. So that trust.
I think it's funny the kind of the worry cycle that we've gone through with AI. When it first came out, it was is this going to take our jobs? And then as people start to use it, they're like, yeah, maybe the code isn't actually perfect, and you still need to be able to read the code and know that we can deploy the code and things like that. And then, but of course, there's the worry about pushing your proprietary and customer data into the model to train it. And now there's a big conversation, actually, I don't know if you've read about this, but the New York Times has blocked OpenAI APIs from using their data because essentially and I think there's some lawsuits around copyright because essentially, because OpenAI, they're using data, and it's something I've considered as well. Do I want OpenAI reading all of our blogs and therefore being able to speak in the kind of language that we speak in? Because we like to think that's quite unique to us and our writers. So
absolutely,
a lot of issues.
I'd be remiss if I didn't share. I remember when this was TDX, when they announced so much of the AI stuff coming out. I was talking to my wife about it, who's an attorney, and she doesn't do copyright or any patent type law stuff. But she was like, I can imagine there are a lot of copyright attorneys out there, and they're salivating. They're like, yes. And it's not going to be right now. It's not going to be this month or 2 months. But to your point, let a learning model look at a piece of content, reframe it, rewrite it. But at the end of the day, some of that content is still very much built by a person in an unknown language, and there's already a ton of lawsuits that are out there. We're 6 months past that announcement, and so I do think there's going to be something. If I could predict the future, how that all unfolds, I have no clue. She doesn't either.
So far, we thought the technology was moving fast 2 years ago, and now it's just blistering.
It's hard to keep up. Walking the vendor floor, down the base camp downstairs. Yeah, I like to think, I'm sure you do too, I like to keep my ear to the ground. I know most of the logos that are there. It's there are new logos here that I have absolutely never heard of. And I think it is actually helping the startup community, the smaller ISVs, very much like we are, grow and build faster and go to market faster with it. So there's a lot of silver linings, just advantages in general to it all coming back. All right. Biggest thing. This is the last topic, and then I've got my bonus question for you. Overcoming enterprise inertia. So many ways to unpack that. I'm going to let you start, but I do have a couple questions for you on how we think about enterprise inertia. But when y'all were putting this together, what led you to that being one of the big themes for the State of Salesforce?
I think it's a nice summary of actually all the points that we've talked about so far, because the insight is using innovation to overcome enterprise inertia or stagnation. And we all know this, but I think it's kind of nice to be reminded, especially in the age of AI. We've talked about this throughout the chat, but if you don't innovate in this period, you will get left behind, and I think it will have a much more of an impact than digital transformations and things like that, just because the productivity gains we're going to see are so much. So I just think it's a nice summary, really. And there's actually a really good statistic in the State of Salesforce report, and I've never heard this statistic used before, but they measure ROI, revenue per license, revenue per Salesforce license. What they found is that Pioneers were generating 40% more revenue per license than the Pensivs, who are the people who are a bit more apprehensive. So that's just a pretty good stat overall to do with innovation.
That's fascinating, and I believe it. I mean, the faster you can adopt accurately, I'll say accurately, because adoption can come back and hurt you, and there's no doubt about that. If you develop too quickly, you release too quickly, you get that out there, you didn't test enough, you didn't have enough of your test scripts going. Now people are adopting something that's actually not beneficial to the business that can hinder it. And I think for a long time, enterprise. I started my career in a very, very large enterprise company, 50 or 500,000 plus people. I remember starting that. I was there for about 3.5, 4 years. One of the projects I started like week 2 never even got finished. I mean, just projects take. I mean, you did so much of it in the consulting days too. It is tough to actually like get things to the finish line. I think you are going to have acceleration based off a lot of the stuff that we've talked about, and that big old AI word that everybody's talking about right now. I think it is going to speed up. I do want to push a sincere, not a word of caution, but just word of thoughtfulness. Like, make sure as you're overcoming some of this inertia at the enterprise level, you're still taking your right steps. Don't go too fast. You can still go fast. You can move fast to break things. We all know that quote. But you can also move at a pace where faster than you currently are, but still do it in a very, very safe manner. I think about that when we talk about a lot of our enterprise customers. They love what Sonar's doing for them. Like, man, we can get our projects done so much faster. We have this insight and visibility into what we can see now in our org. It's like, great. Like, don't neglect your first principles, though, of still testing the right way, deploying the right way. I just want to make sure that we stay grounded in that sense to a degree.
Yeah, I mean, also, we've been speaking about data and getting the fundamentals right, and there's no point piling AI technology on top of a dodgy org with loads of technical debt and data that isn't, and it's got low adoption, and AI is not going to solve all your problems if those fundamentals aren't right. So a lot to do for people.
Totally. All right, as we wrap up, we got a few minutes left. We're out of time. This is perfect. I love when a good plan comes together. Bonus question, theme number 6. Ben McCarthy, what outside of AI, outside of these things that we're talking through, when you look at Salesforce right now, it is Wednesday, September 13th. Love to do this again next year. We're just going to keep nailing this. What do you think over the next year, outside of some of the AI things, fascinates you the most? And it also gets you really excited about how just the overall Salesforce ecosystem is evolving and where that directionally starts taking us.
I think I think I would just come back to kind of the Salesforce platform. Everything to it's a bit cliche, I guess, but flow. There's so much work is being done on flow now. They've released something a few months ago. I think it's not completely new, that enables you to call APIs with flow, and that's clicks, not code. And then they've released something today that allows you to take flow to Data Cloud. And it's not so much of a big topic at this year's Dreamforce because AI has completely taken over. But I think one of the things that I'm been talking about a lot is we're in this kind of economic cycle where we need to do more with less.
Totally.
And the fact that there's all these Salesforce customers out there that have the Salesforce platform, and of course it takes time and resources to develop things on the Salesforce platform, but you don't need to buy all these new technologies pile in. You have this Salesforce platform which come with your licenses. You just need to build on top of it. You just need to automate and there's so much to do with clicks, not code now. That I think there's just so much potential there. Even if you don't want to spend loads of money on AI licenses, blah blah blah. You've got the core Salesforce platform, and it's being innovated on 3 times a year with the releases. So.
Yeah. I agree with you. Interestingly enough, one of the sessions I sat in yesterday with one of my best friends, we were talking about this earlier, prepping for this, Keith Jones over at Gartner, one of the best analysts out there. We sat in on a unlimited session. And it's fascinating to me to hear how we're starting to position, unlimited sort of against enterprise, but it goes back to the overall piece of this. We are all doing more with less. I think Salesforce has done such a great job, and high five, hat tip to everybody who's put a lot of genuine thought into building it this way. I think we're now in a place where we're going to continue to really stretch how far Salesforce can be in the box for us, like just out of the box solutions, and really push this. One of those cool things, like you can now create like really small flows and add those in as like sequence steps inside of HDS. I was like, that's brilliant. Like, give the autonomy and the power back to the seller to do some of their own click, not code. Now, you still have an admin or a developer build that, but now it's kind of off the shelf. They can take that automation, plug it into their own sequence, and just keep flying. And I think we're going to see a little bit more of that. I do feel the same way you're thinking. We're going to pushed the boundaries of that inside of Salesforce for a very long time. And it just goes to show, I think, going back to some of the market pendulum swinging that's going on, for a while, Salesforce had a little bit of a buy, not build mentality. And you saw some of these acquisitions. And I think that pendulum's swinging a little bit more back to the let's go build inside of Salesforce, and let's really make sure that as we're rethinking about this platform, how we can push it all the way out to its boundaries and maybe not have to always rely too much on other tech stack pieces that come in to do the job for us. And that's, candidly, for some ISVs out there, that might be a little scary, but it also is going to push them to develop such a better platform that can integrate with Salesforce and really make sure that it's just so tightly knit. So I'm right there with you. I'm excited about it, man.
Yeah.
Ben, as we're wrapping up, I can't thank you enough, man. It's always a pleasure just talking to you and getting to hang out with you. Yeah, man, we're going to do this way more often.
Yeah.
You know that. But we got a busy week ahead of us. I didn't even feel like we're halfway through Dreamforce yet, but we're getting close. My feet hurt. My throat's a little scratchy now. Happy hours like you had last night were amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, man. I can't thank you enough. You know how much we appreciate all the partnership that you do with us. But let's go get back out there. Let's go to Moscone. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Please connect with Ben and I both. Obviously, if you're not, jump over to salesforceben.com, grab the report. We got the link in the chat, and we'll share it out, obviously, with all the recording. But Ben, thanks again. We'll talk soon. All right. Have a great Dreamforce, everybody. We'll talk soon. See ya. Kevin, will you push us down to the green room? Cool.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. God, that was great, man. I would have turned that air back on. I was like half